Once upon a time, in a very busy city filled with tall buildings, shiny cars, and noisy markets, there lived a young man named Badmus. He was only in his early 30s, but everyone in the town already knew his name. Why? Because Badmus loved money more than anything else in the world. He had a big house with tall iron gates, a sparkling gold wristwatch, and the newest car on the street. He always wore suits that shone under the sun, and his shoes clicked loudly on the ground as if to remind people that he was important. When Badmus walked, he lifted his head high, almost like the ground was not good enough for his feet. People whispered when he passed. Some said, "Oh, Badmus is rich and powerful." Others muttered, "He thinks he owns the whole city." But Badmus did not care. He loved the respect and fear people showed him. He wanted to be seen as the king of the city. Yet, behind his loud laugh, behind his big house and shiny cars, there was a secret that made him angry every single day. That secret was his wife, Favor. Favor was the opposite of Badmus. She was gentle and quiet. She had smooth brown skin, soft eyes that always looked kind, and a smile that could melt even the coldest heart. But most of the time, her smile was hidden. Her eyes carried sadness, like a river of tears she never allowed to fall. Favor was not with Badmus because of his wealth. No. She had married him when he was still struggling, when he had no big house, no cars, no expensive suits. She loved him when all he had was hope. They had been married for 6 long years. She cooked for him, washed his clothes, and even went hungry sometimes so he could eat. She stood by him when people laughed at his dreams. She held his hand and said, "One day, you will make it. I believe in you." And indeed, one day Badmus made it. He became rich, powerful, and respected. But as his money grew, his heart grew hard. There was one thing missing in their lives: children. 6 years had passed, and Favor had not been able to give birth. At first, Badmus was patient. He told her, "It will happen. Don't worry." But slowly, his patience began to disappear. His friends started making fun of him behind his back. Badmus, the great man of the city, but no child to call him father, they joked. Another friend said, "A man without a child is not truly a man." Those words stabbed Badmus like knives. He started to feel ashamed. Instead of defending his wife, he began to see her as the problem. Favor cried many nights alone in their bedroom. She prayed, she begged God to bless her womb. She visited doctors, but each time the results were the same: no baby. Still, she did not stop loving her husband. She said softly, "Badmus, I am still your wife. Please don't give up on me." But Badmus' heart had turned cold. One night, the moon was shining through the window. Favor was fast asleep when Badmus shook her awake. His face was hard like stone. "Get up, Favor," he said sharply. She rubbed her sleepy eyes. "What is it, my husband? Is something wrong?" "Yes," Badmus replied. "Something is very wrong. I can't continue in this marriage. You have given me nothing. No son, no daughter. All my friends laugh at me because of you." Favor's eyes widened in shock. Tears filled them instantly. "Please, don't say that. Remember how we started. Remember when you had nothing, and I stood by you. Money is not everything. We still have love." "Love?" Badmus shouted. "What is love without children? I need a son to carry my name. I need heirs to inherit my empire. You are a failure, Favor. You have failed me as a wife." Favor dropped to her knees, holding his legs. "Please, my husband, don't send me away. Give me more time. Let us pray together. Let us wait together." But Badmus pushed her away. His pride was louder than her tears. The next morning, Badmus called his lawyer. Papers were drawn up quickly. A divorce. He didn't even try to hide it from his wife. When the lawyer handed the papers to Favor, her hands trembled. The words on the page were heavy, final, like a door being slammed in her face. "Sign it," Badmus ordered coldly. Favor looked at him with red, swollen eyes. "So, this is it. After all we have been through." Badmus turned his face away. "Just sign." Her tears dripped onto the paper as she signed her name. She had no strength to argue. She had no power to fight. She felt like her whole world was crashing. That night, with nothing but a small bag of clothes, Favor walked out of the mansion she had helped build. Her steps were heavy, her heart broken. The city lights around her blurred as tears filled her eyes. She had no car, no driver, no home to run to. The same city where she once lived as the wife of a rich man now looked strange and cold. People who used to bow to her now looked away, pretending not to know her. Favor kept walking, the sound of her slippers echoing in the empty street. Each step felt like fire on her feet, each breath like a knife in her chest. She whispered to herself, "Where will I go? What will I do?" She thought of running back and begging one more time. She thought of throwing herself on the ground before Badmus. But then she remembered his cold eyes, his proud voice, his cruel words, "You are a failure." Her knees buckled, and she sank to the roadside, crying bitterly. It was then, in her darkest hour, that she remembered someone. A childhood friend. Someone who once told her, "If you ever need me, I'll be there." She wiped her tears, stood up again, and took the first step toward a new life. But she did not know then that the man who had thrown her away would one day see her again. And when he did, he would not recognize the woman she had become. Favor walked through the quiet streets until morning came. Her legs shook. Her eyes were tired. But her heart kept whispering one name, Michael. Michael was her childhood friend. When they were little, he used to share his meat pie with her after school. He was kind, and he once told her, "If you ever need help, come to me." When the sun finally rose, Favor reached a tall glass building with a bright sign on it. It was Michael's company. Cars were coming in and out. Workers hurried through the doors. Favor felt small, like a leaf at the foot of a big tree. She almost turned away because of shame. But she took a deep breath and walked in. Inside, the air smelled fresh. People typed on computers. Phones rang. She asked the receptionist, "Please, is Michael here?" The woman looked at Favor's tired face and soft voice. "Do you have an appointment?" she asked kindly. "No," Favor said, her hands shaking. "But please tell him that Favor is here." The receptionist called upstairs. A few minutes later, the elevator opened. A tall man with warm eyes rushed out. It was Michael. The moment he saw Favor, his face changed. "Favor," he said softly. "What happened to you?" Tears filled her eyes. She could not speak. He didn't ask more questions. He took off his jacket and wrapped it around her shoulders. "Come with me," he said. "You are safe now." Michael took Favor to a small guest room in the building where tired workers sometimes rested. He asked the cook to bring food. He gave Favor water and waited until she finished eating. Then she told him everything, the harsh words, the papers, the cold nights, and how she had nowhere to go. Michael's jaw tightened, but he did not speak bad words about Badmus. He just nodded and said, "I am sorry this happened to you. But listen, your life is not over. Your story is not finished. You stood by a man when he was poor. Now, let people stand by you." He arranged a place for Favor to stay for a while, a quiet room in a small house near his office. He gave her money for clothes and food. He told 2 trusted women in his company to help her feel at home. Every day, he checked on her like a brother would. He did not push her. He did not tell her to forget quickly. He just walked beside her one small step at a time. At first, Favor stayed silent most days. She would sit by the window and watch the street. Buses moved. Children laughed as they ran. She remembered the life she had lost and cried quietly. But one afternoon, Michael sat with her at the kitchen table. "Favor," he said gently, "what do you love to do?" She thought for a long time. "I love sweet smells," she said at last. "I love mixing oils. I used to make simple perfumes at home. I even mix soap with soft scents before everything." Michael's eyes brightened. "Then let us start there." He gave her a small corner in one of his shops to display tiny bottles. He helped her buy clean glass jars, labels, and lovely natural oils. He told her, "We will begin small and honest." Favor worked with careful hands. She mixed vanilla and rose. She tried coconut with a whisper of orange. She wrote names in neat letters: morning come, kind night, little sunshine. The first day she set her table, only 3 people bought something. But they smiled and said, "This is nice." That night, Favor smiled too for the first time in many days. The next week, more people came. A lady said, "I used your soap, and my children love the smell." A man bought 2 bottles and said, "This reminds me of my mother's garden." Favor's heart warmed. She felt useful again. Michael clapped softly when he saw her little stack of money. "You did this," he said. "Not me. You." As weeks turned into months, Favor became brighter. She laughed again. She cooked small meals and shared them with the helpers. She wrote little notes of thanks to customers. People started to ask for her by name. "Where is the woman with the soft smile? Where is the perfume lady?" They called her Auntie Favor, even if they were older than she was. It made her laugh. One evening, as they closed the shop, the city lights were gold and soft. Michael said, "You are strong, Favor." She looked down. "I don't feel strong. I still remember the pain." "Strength isn't the same as forgetting," Michael said. "Strength is standing up even while the hurt is still there." She looked at him then, really looked. She saw the same boy who once shared his meat pie, now a kind man with steady hands and a calm voice. Her heart felt a gentle pull, like a door inside her opening just a little. Michael's care was never loud or proud. Sometimes they sat on a bench outside, watching people walk by. They talked about little things, the way the wind moved the trees, the smell of roasted corn from the roadside. He told her jokes that were not very funny, and she laughed anyway, happy to feel light. The helpers noticed. One of them whispered to the other, "Their hearts are becoming friends." The other smiled and nodded. Time passed. Favor's shop grew. She had a neat sign above her table now, "Favor's Fine Scents." One evening, after they locked the shop, Michael spoke softly. "Favor, I have been thinking about this for a long time. I respect you. I care for you. I want to build a home where your heart can rest. Will you marry me?" Favor's breath caught. The street seemed to go quiet. She thought of her past, of papers and cold voices and empty nights. She also thought of the gentleman standing in front of her, the one who waited, listened, and helped her stand again. Her eyes filled with tears, but they were happy tears. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes." Their wedding was quiet. There were no golden gates or loud music. It was simple and sweet. A small hall. Friends who knew their story and smiled with real joy. Michael looked at Favor and said, "I will love you with patience." Favor looked at Michael and said, "I will honor you with peace." They signed their names with steady hands. After the wedding, they went home to a small but warm house. They prayed together. They laughed as they tried to cook jollof that tasted a bit too smoky. They made plans for the shop. They spoke softly at night about dreams, kind dreams, not proud ones. Months later, Favor noticed something new. She felt tired in the mornings. The smell of fried plantain made her feel sick, even though she loved plantain. Some days, she wanted to sleep before sunset. Michael watched her carefully. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I don't know," she said, touching her belly. "I feel different." He smiled. "Maybe we should see a doctor." They went to a clean hospital with pale walls and bright lights. A nurse welcomed them. The doctor asked gentle questions. Then he said, "Let us do a scan." Favor lay on a soft bed. The room hummed softly. The doctor moved a small machine over her belly while she stared at the ceiling and held Michael's hand. The doctor's eyebrows lifted. He moved the machine again. He looked at the screen closely. He smiled a little, then smiled bigger. "Madam," he said slowly, "I need you to breathe. And I need you to listen very carefully." Favor's heart began to race. Michael squeezed her hand. "Doctor," he asked. "Is she okay?" "She is more than okay," the doctor said. "I see not one, not two," he paused and counted with his finger. "I see 4 little heartbeats." The room went still. Favor blinked. "4," she whispered. "Are you sure?" The doctor nodded. 4. Quadruplets. For a moment, Favor could not speak. Tears rolled down her cheeks. She covered her mouth with both hands. Michael laughed and cried at the same time. He kept saying, "Thank you, God. Thank you." The doctor printed the picture for them. It showed tiny shapes that looked like little stars. 4 small lights, 4 small lives. Favor held the picture like treasure. Michael held her shoulders, and they stood there in wonder. At home that night, the house felt too small for so much joy. They danced slowly in the sitting room, laughing and wiping tears. Michael whispered, "Our home will be loud with tiny feet." Favor whispered back, "Our hearts will be full with tiny hands." But even in joy, a small shadow moved at the edge of their memories. Favor folded the scan picture and placed it in her Bible. She touched her belly and smiled. "Little lights," she whispered, "grow strong." Outside, the night wind sang softly through the trees. Inside, hope sang louder. And far away, pride began to tremble. The days passed quickly, and Favor's life began to shine in ways she never imagined. Her little perfume shop grew busier. People from far parts of the city came to buy her soaps and oils. They said, "The woman with the soft smile makes scents that feel like joy." Favor laughed softly each time she heard that. Her belly grew too, round and beautiful. Neighbors watched her with surprise. "Is that not the same woman Badmus divorced for being barren?" they whispered. Some shook their heads, some smiled secretly, and some said, "God works in ways no one can understand." 9 months later, the day of birth arrived. The hospital was filled with nurses rushing in and out. Michael held Favor's hand tightly. Sweat covered her face, but her spirit stayed strong. Hours later, the room filled with the cries of babies, first 1, then 2, then 3, and finally 4. Quadruplets, the doctor shouted with joy. 2 boys and 2 girls. Strong and healthy. Michael's knees almost gave way. He laughed and cried at the same time. He kissed Favor's forehead. "You are the strongest woman I know," he whispered. When the news spread, the city went wild. People could not believe it. The same woman Badmus once mocked as barren now had 4 children at once. Favor's quiet tears had turned into songs of joy. Caring for 4 babies was not easy. Favor woke at midnight, then at dawn, then at noon again. Sometimes all 4 cried at the same time. The house was filled with the sound of tiny voices. But even in tiredness, her heart was full. Michael helped her every step. He rocked one baby while she nursed another. He sang silly songs that made Favor laugh even when she was sleepy. Their house was small, but it was filled with love, laughter, and little feet kicking in the air. When people visited, they shook their heads in wonder. "These children are blessings," they said. "Your home is blessed." As her children grew, so did her business. With Michael's support, Favor opened a bigger shop. She painted the walls soft white and placed shelves filled with colorful bottles. Customers loved her perfume so much that some begged her to supply them in bulk. She hired workers to help. She paid them well and treated them kindly. Soon, her brand became known all over the city. Her name was no longer whispered with pity but spoken with respect: Favor, the woman who rose from ashes. Favor herself changed too. She no longer walked with her head down. She stood tall, her soft eyes glowing with peace. She wore simple but elegant clothes, often carrying one baby on her back while holding another by the hand. People greeted her with smiles. Children in the street called Mommy Favor. While Favor's life bloomed, Badmus also grew richer. His company became bigger. He bought more cars, more land, more jewelry. But his house was strangely quiet. He had no children running around, no wife's laughter to fill the rooms. He went to parties, yes, but when the music stopped, he sat alone in his wide living room. Pride was still his closest friend. He told himself he did not care about Favor. She was a burden, he said to himself. I did the right thing. But sometimes, when he saw families laughing in packs or mothers holding babies, a sharp pain cut through his heart. He pushed it away with more parties, more noise, more money. One day, Badmus met a young woman named Divine. She was beautiful and stylish, with a laugh that sparkled like glass. Her family was rich, and their union promised more wealth and power. Badmus saw in her a chance to show the city that he had moved on. He gave her gifts, flowers, jewelry, even a car. She smiled sweetly and said yes when he proposed. Badmus planned the wedding of the year. He wanted gold decorations, a hall that sparkled like diamonds, and a guest list filled with the richest people in town. But deep inside, another thought burned in him like fire: he wanted Favor to see it. He wanted her to feel shame, to regret leaving him even though he had thrown her out. So, he told the wedding planner, make sure an invitation reaches Favor. Let her come and see what she lost. One afternoon, as Favor played with her children, a letter arrived. The envelope was thick, shiny, and carried the seal of wealth. Favor opened it slowly. Her eyes scanned the words. You are invited to the wedding of Badmus and Divine. For a moment, her hands trembled. She remembered the night he pushed her away, the cold words, the pain. Then she looked up and saw her 4 little ones running around, laughing. She saw Michael in the kitchen, humming as he stirred a pot. Her heart calmed. She folded the invitation and placed it on the table. When Michael came in, she showed it to him. He read it, then looked at her. He wants to mock you, Michael said softly. But you don't have to go if you don't want to. Favor smiled. Why should I hide? I am not the same woman he left. I will go. Not to fight, not to boast, but to stand as who I am now. Michael touched her hand. Then we will go together. The weeks passed quickly. Favor prepared for the wedding with quiet strength. She chose a simple but stunning dress, soft gold that matched her brown skin. Michael wore a sharp black suit. The quadruplets wore matching outfits, 2 boys in tiny tuxedos and 2 girls in lovely gowns. On the morning of the wedding, a shiny white Rolls Royce parked in front of their house. Neighbors gathered around, gasping. Is that not Favor? See the car. See the children. The children held hands as they climbed in, giggling. Favor carried one girl in her arms, while Michael held the other. They sat together, a picture of peace and joy. The driver started the car. The Rolls-Royce glided smoothly toward the grand wedding hall. Inside, Favor's heart beat fast. Not with fear, but with calm courage. She whispered to her babies, "Today, the world will see who we are." Meanwhile, at the wedding hall, Badmus stood tall in his glittering suit. Guests filled the hall, laughter and music bouncing off the walls. He looked around with pride, waiting for the moment Favor would walk in, broken, alone, dressed in shame. But what was coming would freeze every smile in the hall. Because Favor was on her way. And she was not coming alone. The city buzzed with excitement. Badmus' wedding was the talk of the town. It was not just any wedding, it was a show, a display of wealth, a stage where he wanted the whole world to see his power. The invitations were printed on thick gold paper. The hall was decorated with diamond-like chandeliers that hung low and shone like little suns. The floor gleamed, the flowers were fresh, and the air smelled of money and pride. Guests arrived in shiny cars, Mercedes, BMWs, and limousines. Their clothes glittered, their perfumes filled the air, and their laughter echoed like music. Cameras flashed everywhere. Reporters stood by, ready to capture the event. Badmus walked around proudly, shaking hands, smiling with his head high. He wore a white suit that sparkled with silver threads. "This is my day," he told himself. "Everyone will know that I am the greatest." But in his heart, he had one secret plan. He waited for one special guest. He imagined Favor walking in with an old, torn dress, maybe alone, maybe looking thin and sad. He wanted the guest to whisper, "That is his ex-wife. She looks so pitiful." He wanted them to laugh. He wanted her brokenness to make his greatness shine brighter. Little did he know, the story would turn upside down. The music was playing softly when suddenly a hush fell over the hall. Heads turned toward the entrance. Murmurs rose. People stood from their seats, craning their necks. A white Rolls-Royce had just stopped at the gate. Its body shone so brightly that it looked like it carried a piece of the sun. The driver stepped out and opened the door. Slowly, a tall man in a sharp black suit stepped down. He had a confident smile, his shoulders broad, his step steady. Holding his hand was a little boy in a tuxedo, his face bright and curious. Gasps filled the air. "Who is that?" someone whispered. Then, another boy climbed down, also in a tuxedo. And then two little girls in golden gowns, their hair neatly braided, ribbons shining under the light. Each child held the other's hand as if they were stars walking into the world together. And then she appeared. Favor. She wore a flowing gown the color of soft gold, simple but royal. Her brown skin glowed. Her soft eyes were calm, yet they carried power. She held one daughter in her arms, while the other clung to her husband's side. Her smile was quiet, but it lit the hall more than all the chandeliers. For a moment, the hall froze. It was as if time itself held its breath. The same woman who had once been thrown out, the same woman who had been called Barren, was now standing with a husband who adored her and 4 beautiful children who shone like jewels. "Is that not Favor?" someone gasped. "Yes, the same Favor Badmus divorced," another whispered. "But look at her now. She has quadruplets. My God, see her husband. He treats her like a queen." The whispers grew louder. Phones clicked as guests tried to take pictures. Some covered their mouths in shock. Some shook their heads in disbelief. Others smiled knowingly, as if they had been waiting for this day. Badmus, standing near the front, felt his chest tighten. His eyes widened as he saw Favor walking gracefully into the hall. His heart hammered against his ribs. The woman he thought would crawl in shame was walking in glory. Favor walked slowly, each step steady. She did not rush. She did not hide. She did not look around to see who was whispering. She kept her eyes straight ahead, her children close, her husband beside her. Her husband, Michael, placed his hand on her back gently, guiding her with respect. He leaned down and said something to the little boy, who giggled softly. The sight made many guests smile. They could see it clearly, this was a family built on love, not pride. Favor's head was high, but not with arrogance. It was high with peace. She was not here to fight, not here to boast. She was simply here to be herself, a woman who had risen from rejection into a life of blessings. Badmus felt it climb up his neck. His palms grew wet. He remembered the night he had shouted at her, the cruel words he had spoken, the papers he forced her to sign. He remembered calling her a failure. But now, here she was, walking with 4 children who looked like tiny angels, with a husband who looked at her as if she were treasure. The bride, Divine, sat on the decorated chair, her gown glittering with diamonds. At first, she smiled at the sight of the crowd's reaction. But then she saw Favor. She saw the 4 children. She saw the way Michael treated her. Divine's smile faltered. She glanced at Badmus, her eyes sharp. So, this is the woman you mocked. This is the woman you said was nothing. The look in her eyes burned, though she said no word. Favor and her family found a seat. She sat calmly, adjusting her daughter's ribbon. Michael helped the boys settle down. Their laughter was soft, their movements gentle. It was a picture of peace in the middle of a storm. The very moment he thought would prove his power had now become the moment that revealed his weakness. As the ceremony continued, Favor did not look at Badmus directly. She focused on her children, on her husband, on the joy of the day. But once, just once, her eyes lifted. They met Badmus' eyes across the hall. Her gaze was calm, not angry. Her smile was soft, not mocking. That smile said everything words could not. I survived. I rose. And I am free. Badmus looked away quickly, his throat dry. That smile would haunt him more than any harsh word could have. The ceremony went on, but the guest hearts were no longer on the couple at the altar. Their eyes kept drifting to Favor and her family. Badmus tried to keep his proud face, but inside, shame boiled like fire. He had invited his ex-wife to disgrace her. But instead, she had walked in like a queen, surrounded by love, with 4 living proofs of the blessings he thought she would never have. All eyes kept shifting toward the family that had stolen the spotlight, the woman Badmus once called Barren now sitting with her quadruplets and her gentle husband. Badmus stood stiff at the altar, sweat forming on his forehead. He tried to force a smile, but it looked weak, almost painful. He could feel the eyes on him, the whispers running like fire through dry grass. Is that not the same Favor he threw out? She has 4 children now. See her husband. Look at the way he holds her hand with respect. So who is truly blessed, Badmus or Favor? Every word stung like a whip. As the ceremony continued, Badmus' mind was no longer on his bride, Divine. His eyes kept darting toward Favor. Each time he saw her smile at her children, shame stabbed him deeper. That could have been me, he thought bitterly. Those children could have been mine. That family could have been mine. But his pride had destroyed it all. He remembered the night he had called her a failure, the moment he forced the divorce papers into her trembling hands. He remembered her tears, her broken voice begging him not to throw her away. And now, she sat there, all incomplete, while he felt hollow inside. The bride, Divine, noticed everything. She noticed how the guests looked at Favor more than at her. She noticed the way whispers traveled like a wave whenever Favor shifted in her seat. She also noticed Badmus' eyes, how they could not stay away from his ex-wife. Her lips tightened. Though she smiled for the cameras, her heart grew heavy with suspicion and anger. So, this is why he invited her, she thought. To show off. But look at him now, he is the one being disgraced. Her cold stare pierced Badmus' pride more than the whispers did. During the reception, people lined up for food, but their voices were not about the bride and groom. They were about favor. Do you see how her husband treats her? Yes. He carries the baby without shame. Unlike Badmus who left her. God truly lifted her. Badmus must be regretting now. The words flowed from table to table. Some guests even stood to greet Favor, shaking her hand, blessing her children, smiling at Michael. It was clear the true honor of the day had fallen not on Badmus, but on the woman he once despised. At one point, the master of ceremony asked for the important families to stand. Badmus' relatives stood, their faces proud but forced. Then, Michael rose with Favor and their children. The hall erupted in applause. Not because of wealth, but because of the story of a woman who rose from ashes, the story of a mother blessed with quadruplets, the story of a man who cherished his wife. Favor bowed her head humbly, her children waving their little hands at the crowd. Michael smiled, holding her hand firmly. It was not pride that shone from them. It was peace. Badmus felt the ground beneath him grow thin. His chest ached as if a heavy stone pressed against it. He had built this wedding to be a moment of glory, but now it felt like a stage where his shame was displayed. He glanced at Favor again. She was not laughing at him. She was not mocking him. She was simply living, simply being. That calm dignity was sharper than any insult. For the first time in years, Badmus felt small. Truly small. When the wedding ended, the guests rushed toward Favor, asking to take pictures with her family, blessing her children, congratulating her husband. Badmus stood by his new bride, forgotten, his smile frozen. Divine's family frowned, embarrassed. They had expected their daughter to be the center of attention. Instead, she was a shadow at her own wedding. Divine's anger burned silently, but her eyes said it all: this is the man I married. A man who cannot even bury his past without disgrace. Badmus' hands shook as he held her arm, but she pulled slightly away. As Favor prepared to leave, she turned once more toward Badmus. Their eyes met across the crowd. She did not look at him with hatred. She did not look at him with revenge. She simply gave him a soft, peaceful smile, the kind that said, I forgive you. But I am no longer yours to break. Badmus felt his throat tighten. He wanted to speak, to call her name, to beg. But his voice was lost in the noise of the crowd. Michael opened the Rolls-Royce door for Favor and the children. He helped them in with gentle care. The car drove away, leaving whispers and stunned faces behind. That night, Badmus sat alone in his white, glittering house. The laughter of guests had faded, the music silenced. His bride was in another room, silent and cold. He poured himself a drink, but it did not warm him. Favor's smile haunted him. The image of her children's faces burned in his mind. For the first time, he realized that true wealth was not cars or gold or mansions. True wealth was love, respect, and family, the very things he had thrown away. But it was too late. Favor, once cast out, had risen like the morning sun. She had found love, peace, and blessings beyond measure. She had no need for revenge. Her life itself was a victory. He had invited his poor ex-wife to his wedding to disgrace her. But she came in with her husband and quadruplets, and without saying a word, she left him with the deepest shame of his life. Favor walked away crowned not with gold, but with the priceless jewels of love, peace, and a family that no pride could ever buy. Moral of the story. Pride can destroy what love has built. A good heart may suffer for a while, but in the end, it will always shine brighter than riches and power. Never mock or throw away someone because of their weakness. You may be surprised by how life blesses them tomorrow. True wealth is not cars, houses, or gold, but love, respect, peace, and family. Those who laugh at others' pain often end up with shame, but those who stay kind, patient, and faithful will rise higher than anyone imagined. For more unforgettable folktales, remember to subscribe, like, share, and subscribe to AB Folktale Stories, where wisdom lives forever.